Hello and welcome back to my channel, DaSilva-Lining. I'm Yolanda DaSilva, mindset mentor and coach. So you want to start living your best life? Here's one thing that you can start doing today to make sure that that happens. And that is being mindful of your self-talk. So what is self-talk? Self-talk is just that. It's the way you talk to yourself about yourself. Self-talk then also has the ability to influence your belief system. Okay, so if you have or experience some limiting beliefs, for example, you think the only way to make money is to work 3 or 4 jobs, or the only way that you could possibly live in your dream home is if you win the lottery, right? So it's having a belief where the only outcome is something really challenging or difficult to come by. Right? So that's a limiting belief. You're setting a limit as to how you can possibly have or obtain something. Limiting beliefs. Your self-talk, the way that you talk to yourself, though, influences your belief system, right? And our self-talk largely, was developed or began when we were very, very young. Oftentimes, it's outside influences like your parents, your teachers, your coaches, media, what you saw on television, what you read online can influence how you then speak to yourself about yourself. So if you're the type of person who, has a pretty good life and you're able to achieve goals, set those goals, conquer them, you're pretty much in a good mood and good space, your chances are your self-talk is on point. You're doing the right things. You're telling yourself the right things. You're hyping yourself up. You're souping yourself up. Whatever you want to say, however you want to call it, you do that, right? You're saying all the things, and then because you're saying them to yourself and you're believing that you have the capacity to achieve those things, so there's hope, there's confidence, you're leading with that, it affects the way that you then function. And so then you are more likely to maybe be a risk taker or know that you can overcome obstacles. Now, if you're a different type of person in that, you realize my self-esteem is not always that great. I tend to struggle with feeling lonely or being sad, maybe even depressed. Or I struggle with setting, never mind achieving goals, but maybe struggle with setting goals, right? Chances are your self-talk is probably in a place where it's not benefiting you to the best of your abilities. And how do you change that? You change your self-talk. How do you know if you're engaging in positive self-talk? Additionally, ask yourself this: the way that I speak to myself about myself, would I speak to my best friend this way? Would I say the things that I'm saying to myself when I want to go up for a promotion, or when I want to go on a vacation, or when I want to find a new job? Do I use words of encouragement or speak to myself in the way that I would speak to my best friend? Or do I put myself down? Do I tell myself there's no way that someone like me would be able to achieve something like that? Or would I, just pretty much talk my way right out of what could be an opportunity that could change my life? So that's how you can tell, one of the ways, if you're using positive self-talk or negative self-talk. I like to use that measure. Would you speak to your best friend, or would you speak to a child the way that you speak to yourself? If your answer is no, then you are underestimating the impact that your self-talk is having on your daily life and your relationships with other people, the potential for you to have an amazing life and, setting yourself for success, right? So just to share a little bit about where I'm at, I tend to use a lot of positive self-talk. The thing about self-talk is you don't even have to believe it initially. It doesn't have to be based on facts. So you can start to tell yourself I am, and then you fill in the blank. I am confident. I am a rock star. I achieve whatever it is that I want in life. The good Lord intends for me to have a cush life, and I will. I am. Not I will, I am. I will means it's in the future. I am. In the present, you live as if it's already happening. So whatever it is that you want, you start to say it now. So if you are maybe struggling with health issues, it's I am healthy. I'm as healthy as the good Lord wants me to be in this moment. And I'm thankful I'm healthy for that, right? So you start to say these things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to believe it to be true right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is true right now, but it can be something that you want in your future. So you say it as if you're having it right now. It's a form of like reverse engineering, right? Whatever it is that you want, you act as if it's already present. So I was going back to say a little bit about me is growing up, my self-talk was not very good. A lot of bad things happened when I was a kid. I'm sure you've experienced a lot of bad things. But what children tend to do is when bad things happen to them, or bad things happen to us when we're kids, we tend to internalize that and we make it about ourselves. So if something bad happens to the family or if a negative event occurred, then we inherently or intrinsically as children think that we are bad, right? And so we start to then, what I like to call like our defaults start to get set to negativity. And so something bad happened, then I must be bad, and that's why that bad thing happened to me. And so then I constantly came from this thinking or this mindset, unbeknownst to me, right? Because as a kid, I'm not aware that I have self-talk, but I started to just say like, okay, this bad thing happened to me, therefore I am bad. And then, so when other bad things happened, I must have done something to deserve it because I'm not a good person. And the other thing is I grew up with religion. So when you grow up with particular religion and that you have a punishing God and God does things to you or you will go to hell if you are not doing the things that you need to do, those will also influence your self-talk and cause you to have limiting beliefs. So again, foundationally as a child, having this default start to get set, meaning like I was conditioned to think negatively or to anticipate negativity, or that if bad things happened to me, then it was my fault. It was because I was doing bad things, and so God was punishing me for doing bad things. If any of you all can relate to that, let me know. So again, my default settings or my customizations, how I started to develop and was conditioned as a kid was bad things happen to me because I'm doing bad things or I'm inherently bad. And so I would only recognize bad things. It was really hard for me to see good things in life because I focused on waiting for the other bad thing to always happen, right? Always waiting for that other shoe to drop. It wasn't until I got a bit older, unfortunately, maybe in my early 20s, where I learned about, for the first time, the law of attraction. And the law of attraction indicating that whatever you put out, even thoughts, the thoughts that you put out into the universe will boomerang back to you. So if you're having negative thoughts or negative thinking, negative self-talk, you're really just prophesizing things. If I'm talking negatively to myself and saying bad things to myself, well, then I create bad circumstances or I influence bad things to happen, right? And then I get to say, oh, it was bound to happen, right? A self-fulfilling prophecy. And so what the law of attraction taught me was all I had to do was change the way I thought. That's it. I didn't have to buy anything. I didn't have to change in terms of like anything externally. It was just the way I thought about myself or the way I, thought about the world. Literally removing the word not out of my sentences. So instead of I am not capable or I am not confident or I'm not good enough, it was I am capable, I am confident, I am good enough. That's it. That's all I had to do. That was the start of it. And if you start to say that to yourself over and over, well, then that's where your feelings start to change because it starts to kind of cultivate a bit of confidence. It starts to cultivate a bit of hope. And you can start to view things from a different lens. So rather than seeing things only from a negative lens, I start to reframe and think, is there a positive way to view this? Even from the most tragic experiences, is there any positive that I can extract from that experience. And usually there's something. It might not be in the moment while you're going through it that you can recognize that positive thing. But at some point, for me at least, I've been able to, out of every negative thing I've ever experienced, been able to extract something positive that has literally changed my life or the trajectory of my life. And for that, I'm always grateful, right? So it might take something negative for me to then engage or experience something positive. So again, going back to self-talk, starting to change the narrative. I am good enough. I'm confident. I'm capable of things. I deserve good things in my life. And I didn't have to do anything to deserve these things. I deserve these things because I'm here. God put me on this planet, right? So if I want to use religion, I can't just look at the punishing God, but I got to think about the loving God, the God that sent his only son here for me and for all of us to absolve us of our sins. Well, why would that God want us to experience tragedy all the time? Why would that God want us always to feel sad? That doesn't make sense. So again, when I was a kid, my customizations or my default settings were all towards negative. I work as a psychotherapist, and I use this example or this analogy a lot with my patients. Think about it as if, a cell phone. We all buy the same cell phone, right? Say you have an iPhone. You bring that iPhone home. Every single one of those iPhones, their default settings are exactly the same. It's up to you then to go customize the settings on that phone so that phone functions specifically for you. You specialize and you customize it for you. That's like you grow up in a family. Your family gives you this idea, they start to perpetuate. Your family starts to perpetuate these narratives that you then start to live by. And so you think, well, this is how it must be. This is, what I learned. This is what everyone is teaching me. So this must be true. But then you grow up and you recognize, well, wait a second, I don't agree with everything that I was taught. And so you have the ability to say, I like this about my childhood and what I was taught, but I don't like this aspect. Or I like this about what my religion taught me, but I don't necessarily subscribe to this aspect of it. And you get to customize it and tailor it to live the life that's optimal for you. Okay? So you can change your self-talk, you can change your belief systems, so you remove the negativity. And so that you can then have and experience a more positive life. So changing, as I started to change, the way that I spoke to myself about myself, I started to see other things opening up for myself. I started to say, well, I don't have to have certain things in place in order to have certain outcomes. Like I bought my house last year by myself, and I love my family. I love my friends. People are great to me, and they were very supportive and very happy. But the amount of people who said to me, oh, and I know that the intention was good, and I get it. The intention, what they were going to say was good. But it just goes to show their belief system, and that so many people said to me, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And you did this by yourself as a woman, as a single woman. And I was just like, that speaks volumes to me. And their intent, again, is good. And I appreciate all the praise and the congratulatory messages. But several people said that to me. I didn't acknowledge it or say anything to them because, I'm going to accept the good. But that showed me that their limiting belief was that a single woman could not own or purchase her own house without having a partner. But it just goes to show a core belief that those people held about the ability of a woman to own her own home. And there's a lot of core beliefs. We have core beliefs about money, right? Like the only way to make money is you got to work 3 jobs, or you got to do something illegal. That's the only way. When really money, again, is energy. And if you believe that money can flow to you, if you change your belief system about money, money will start to show up. I'll do another video about that in the future, but for now, we'll stick to just this basic here. But I found that, to go back to the cell phone analogy, I find that every so often I might regress, right? I'm not perfect. I'm a constant work in progress, as we all are. There are some times where I regress, where I get in my own head and I start to think like maybe I can't have, or I get very nervous about my responsibilities. The more I amass, the more nervous sometimes I might get. For example, again, back to having this home, had it now for over a year, and initially being very nervous, and I think rightfully so, taking on a mortgage versus a rent payment. Anyway, so after having this house for a year, and then natural things happen, like, oh, taxes are due, mortgage went up, oh, car insurance went up. I started to start to get antsy, right? I started to kind of get a little bit nervous, like, oh wait, did my income go up? I didn't even like necessarily think that. I just like everything else is going up. And then my family wanted to go on yet another trip. I love my family, love them to death, but we enjoy our lives, we're living our lives. And so starting to plan another international trip, and I got nervous and I just said, you know what? No, I can't afford it. And now that's something that has not been in my vocabulary for quite some time. And I noticed I started to tell myself, because these bills were coming in, they were all had increased. I started to recognize, like, oh, I can't afford that. I don't think I can afford this. It's the holidays. Like, so it was like right after I came back from a trip. My cousin had gotten married in Puerto Rico, September. November, I get a notice that my mortgage is going up. Middle of November, I have family coming in for the holidays. And then in our family, we have like so many birthdays in the beginning and all throughout the month of December, mixed with Christmas. By January 1st, your girl was done. Your girl was like, I can't afford another trip. I can't, and I'm just not going. And I kind of like pulled back. So one, I told myself I couldn't afford something. Two, I started to then feel very anxious and nervous. Three, I started to isolate myself from my family. Okay, so how your thoughts can influence how you feel, and how your feelings can influence your actions. That's an example. So what happened there? My defaults, every so often on a cell phone, right? There's an update that needs to happen. There's a factory reset that needs to happen, or that happens, and you have to go back in and recustomize your phone. That's what was happening. That's how I kind of compare that, where I got in my head. Even though I have done all this work for the longest time to amass these successes, every so often something might happen that I get triggered, and I start to feel like, oh my God, can I do this? And that anxiety caused me to behave in a particular way, feel a particular way, and I got in my head. And so what do you do? With all this said, because I said a lot today, how do you change your self-talk? How do you change the limiting beliefs? How, when you experience that reset, how do you manage that? Or when you find yourself sliding back into old ways of thinking, is you go back to the principles again, right? And so I looked for the factual evidence first. I went back to my budget, literally just reviewed my budget, and I was like, I have no evidence that I can't afford this trip. None. There was none. I wasn't outside it. Yes, my mortgage had gone up, or other fees had gone up, but I was still generating enough funds from work and other things that I could afford this trip. The other thing that I got to doing was my daily affirmations, where, because sometimes I get so comfortable and like, oh, I'm good, I don't need to do that, I move away from doing these daily affirmations. But I do a lot of daily affirmations, or like money affirmations, and I do them everywhere or all the time. Or when also the practicing gratitude. I got really good at practicing gratitude again, like being mindful of it, doing it the right way, writing it down, or like feeling it. Every time I walk through the threshold from my laundry room, and from my garage into my laundry room, into my basement, that every single time, like, I'm flooded with like feelings of gratitude, and I feel it and I love it and I embrace it, and I'm like, thank you, every time, like kind of subconsciously, it just happens, right? Again, I don't share all of this to be boastful, to be, gassing myself up, or to make you think like I think I'm like this amazing thing or this amazing person and I have everything I want in life. There's still so much more to be had, and I will have it. However, I say these things to share that I didn't grow up thinking this way. I didn't grow up believing that I could have my own home by myself. And I know for a lot of people, like owning your own home, maybe that's not a thing. Like that's maybe you grew up in a single family home, or like you've had your own home for the past 20 years. And so that's not maybe something you ascribe to. But for me, it was big. And for the people maybe I grew up around, that's big. It was like a marker of success. For you, it could be a different marker of success, and that's okay. You can still apply these same principles. You can still work on your self-talk and your belief system, right? That whole fighting fear or punching fear in the face kind of mentality, whatever it is that you are scared of, you kind of just do. So I don't say this to be conceited or to come across as someone who feels like she does, is all that. I'm pretty good though. Not all that, but listen, bottom line, check your self-talk, figure out what your limiting beliefs are, and know that you are capable of having everything that you want in life. It's possible if you can think it and you can live and feel as if it is already true, you can have it. Now, I don't say do this for if you're interested in a particular person or trying to have a relationship with a particular person, both energies have to align, okay? That person has to want you, you have to want them. That's my belief system about that. So I don't get involved with all that. But if it's not a particular person though, and it's say just love, you can have that. You can have the love that you want if you can get your everything to align. If you notice that when you think about love and when you think about relationships, you maybe have like a negative, visceral reaction, that means there's some things you got to work out. That means you probably have some things that you got to work out, and that's why you're not finding the relationship for you. And that's okay, because if you notice it, you can do something about it. It's better that you notice it than you don't notice. Or you also just have to be ready for it. God will not put a desire in your heart that he will not fulfill. You just have to believe it. The universe is rigged in your favor. Your job is just to believe and act from a place that you deserve these things, that you deserve good things. Believe that you deserve good things, and good things will come to you. That is it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.